Okay.
Uh,
So, Miss Tanya,
yes.
why is community well-being important to you, and what kind of work are you involved in?
Mm, community well-being. That word, it means a lot to me. When I think about the community as a whole, because well-being shows up in all areas. It shows up in the social connections. It shows up in the economic development, um,
Mm.
have or have nots. It's in the environment, it's in our culture, the relevant activities that we have in our diverse populations. It's the political conditions, all of these things. So when you say well-being, I just don't think of well-being as just that word. There's so many pieces to it. And so well-being is definitely the foundation to our work in um, helping the communities heal with compassion. It's a
Mhm.
huge thing. And when I think about my work as a compassion ambassador, I I laugh at this because I have to be a master facilitator, coordinator, organizer. I got to understand group dynamics, human behavior. I've got to be able to understand the overarching view of the city that I'm working in.
Mm.
All of these pieces kind of shape the work that we're doing. Um, and so often I tell people, they say, well, what does it mean to be a compassionate ambassador? Well, I can tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't
Mm.
mean that we come in and we do all the work. What it does mean is I come in and I connect people to the work, to the vision, to the goal,
Mm.
and I facilitate process on all levels: political, spiritual, social. Um, in my role as a community chaplain, I can say that I respond to the spiritual needs of the community.
Mm.
And my work has been working with the underserved in the community. And when I'm in these situations, which are the bleakest of all situations where people's basic needs are not taken care of, that I can know the spiritual truth for them, that I can look beyond the limiting conditions that they have before them and see that light and hold
Mm.
that light when they can't hold the light for themselves. Um, and I see my role in working with people in their darkest hour, whether, it's loss of life or loss of livelihood, my job, my home, emotional despair. Um, and I see my role as a chaplain. And I love my role as a chaplain because it is community based. It's not inside of a church, inside the four walls of the church. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I came out of that. I was a pulpit minister for a while, and I felt that I was restrained by doctrine and restrained by organization. And once I came out into the community, I found myself being available and being open to the needs of the community. I mean, I got a call once that there was a transgender person who was homeless, died on the street, and the parents wanted to do a roadside memorial and have a service to honor this person's journey. Absolutely. I don't care what your human conditions are. I know who you are. And
Mm.
so I can love you and pray for you beyond those limitations. You see? And so whether I'm pouring libation for the Black Women's March, or whether I'm praying for the folks, or I'm delivering a death notification, my role in the community as a chaplain has that piece of compassion
Mm.
woven right through it. In my role as a project director of the African American Suicide Prevention Project, the ability to culturally respond to the needs of the community is where I am. See, we have all of these responses in a general category. And what I'm learning and doing this work is that we need to feed the people the way the people want to be fed.
Mm.
You see, so I need to be able to respond to my experience has to be culturally relevant. In
Mm.
order for somebody to get it, I've got to reach them where they can understand. It's a language. Culture is a language,
Yes.
you know? And when we begin to translate that into action, then people move because they get it. It's familiar, you know. And so I do a drop-in group on Thursday nights called Restoration Hope.
Mm.
And I love it because I tell people, I've been doing it for about 2 years, and I tell people, drop in when you need us, and I'm gonna keep the lights on for you. You see? Because I know that every week you don't need it. But when you do need it, I want you to come to this place that is safe, where you can decompress, get validation that you're not losing your mind. You know what I'm saying? And feel fully supported so that you can move to this next phase. And so with my work, I'm doing a lot of capacity building. And so we work with community-based organizations as well as individuals in the community who are concerned about mental health.
Yes.
And so we offer things like mental health first aid. We offer safe Black space. We offer safe talk, which is a conversation about mental health for the frontline responders. And I call frontline responders family members,
Mm.
friends,
Mm.
right? People in the community where we see mental illness going on. And all of a sudden, you may not be that professional, licensed professional, but you could be that first line of concern. You can be that first line of connection for people. And so I find in doing this work that when I can share with a layperson that you are a viable part of this, of the mental health well-being, right? Of your family, of your community, of the world. We all play a part in it, not just the doctors and the therapists.
Yeah.
You see, we all play in that. And so I'm blessed to be able to do this kind of work. Um, my work as a farmer, I
Mm.
am a food justice warrior on steroids. I want to connect and empower people where the food deserts and the insecurities are. And I want to connect people with food and overall well-being, because yeah, it nourishes our body if you get the right food. We know that, and you can be healthy. But it also, when you grow your food, it does something to you spiritually,
Yeah.
right? It creates this balance that I can't even explain unless you grow something. It's something about putting a seed in the ground, nourishing it, watering it, allowing the sun to give it what it needs, and then watching it grow. And not only watching it grow, but harvesting, the vegetables or the nutrients that you've grown. It transforms you.
Yes.
And so to be able to share that with other people is another piece of that compassion in the world, is by growing food, we're not only feeding people, but we're also healing people,
Mm.
So something happens when you put your hands in the dirt. Um, and I think the last thing in this area for this question is my area of social justice theater,
Mm.
is where I use divine creative energy to infuse knowledge in the community. And in that, in my role as an author, as a poet, as a speaker, I can address those social, economic, environmental, political, and cultural issues that we're dealing with. And I can do it creatively.
Mm.
And so sometimes when if you're talking to someone, that's one level of understanding. But if someone sees you in a creative act, singing, dancing, speaking, all of a sudden they open up and that seed gets planted,
Mm.
and they don't even know the seed was planted you
Mm.
know and so I see that my work in social justice theater as another pivotal piece in my work in compassion, because we need to meet people where they are. And so if it means through the arts, how about it? If it means through developing capacity with leaders, let's do it. If it's the political infrastructure, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So this is just, the work that I do, everything that I do, I seem to have my hand where the thread of compassion is woven throughout everything.
Oh my gosh, Tanya. You are so amazing. I just love like I could listen to you speak for hours.
Oh my goodness.
Ah, I was trying so hard to like bite my tongue so they get a clean recording of that.
I think I'm talking too much. I'm talking too much. But yes,
No, it's
edit
every word is has weight and like you're just so poetically articulate and like I just this is supercharging me for the day. Okay.
Hey, hey, if that's a byproduct of this, then we got it. We did it. We're getting it in where we can get it in, right, babe?
Oh, that is right. Oh, here this fall, winter, I'm re-weatherizing my.
Right. Woo! I like that. I like that. I see a piece. I see a piece moving from the energy of the summer and then actually going to the fall and then
Oh,
moving through the winter and then
oh,
coming out of the winter into the, can you feel that?
yes,
Oh my gosh, girl.
yes.
Coming into spring.
We're gonna birth that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We are going to birth that. Whew, okay.
Oh, okay. All
Next
right.
question. Next question. So, what was the experience that led to a life of creating environments for individual and community activism and well-being? So, what is one thing? Because I know, as we know, life can be a culmination of experience and consciousness raising and everything. Kind of we touched on, but is there one experience that you can share that kind of led to influencing this path of weaving the thread of compassion through your work?
I have to say it started at home with my mom.
Mm.
My mom, if you see, when you see me, my brothers, my sisters, we are all a reflection of my mother. She was an amazing beacon of light that was here way before her time and was taken way before her time was completed. Um, I am the eldest of 6 children, grew up in South Central Los Angeles, which introduced me to disparities at an early age. My earliest experience is the Watts riots.
Mm.
I was 5 years old. I'll never forget looking out the window and seeing things on fire and seeing looting and seeing people running up and down the streets. And I remember my mom saying the reason people were fighting is they were fighting for their lives. And later I began to understand what that meant. It was education, it was employment, it was food, it was access, it was all of those things. And so I watched my mom be very involved in the community. She was always fixing food for people. She was always, we had a lot of drugs in the area. I mean, we went through all the epidemics, the angel dust, the heroin, the crack epidemic. I grew up in Los Angeles. And so I even experienced the civil unrest, the Rodney King era, that whole thing.
Right.
And so my mom would take us into the community, and instead of saying to us that, I don't want you to use drugs, she would take us into the community and show us what drug use looked like and what the results of someone on drugs could cause in your life.
Wow.
And so that really, and when it came to things like my mom would talk about molestation before it was popular to talk about molestation. And she would tell us if someone touches you, and she would act it out. She was my first little director, producer, acting coach. She would act out things. She would come out behind a tree. She would act like a little old woman, come little girl, I have candy for you. And then you would go with her, and then she would turn out to be this big monster, and take you away. And
Mm.
then my mom would say, I don't want anyone to take you away from me. And so we learned early. And so our home became the hub of connection and communication. People would come to our house when they were hurting. People would come to our house when they were celebrating. My mom was also the one that all the young women that found out about sex or that got pregnant or that were raped, they would come to my mom
Mm.
because she was the safe haven for them, you know, to talk about birth control pills because their parents wouldn't talk about it, to talk about what do you do if you get pregnant? What are your options? And you know, and then here's my mom. She was so not the average mom. My mom would sit in front of the house with a bathing suit on and her dog Gucci on a blanket with the Bible, honey, reading. Controversy. Controversy. Miss Thing was no joke. And then people would come by, she would hold court, okay, in this bathing suit, you know. And so, you know, my spouse tells me now, she says, well, you know, you're Eve, you're an exhibitionist because I grew up with being free in my body. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? That I can be naked. When I come home, everything got to go. You know what I'm saying? The girls got to come out and I can think, you know,
Yes.
we'll be out and I'm like, oh, I can't think. She goes, the girls need to come out. The girls need to, you know. So my mom got involved with, and my mom, her mother was Irish and her father was half black and half white. And so she looked white. Okay. So
Mm.
imagine that. We're in South Central Los Angeles in Watts, and this white looking woman, you know, my dad's African American with these mulatto kids. Okay. But we're saying, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Okay. My mom is walking around with an afro rig on and making African clothing for the neighborhood. Okay,
Yes.
this is my experience, right? And so, and then she got involved with the Black Muslims and she got involved with the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was no joke when it came to being on the front line for social justice. She was amazing.
Yes.
um, and so in that work, I think that's what planted the seed for me. um,
Mm.
which, and it's like it's been my life, you
Yeah.
know. So
Wow. Give it up to mom.
no, that's the original OG gangster. And
Shoo.
she was a gang member in Watts in 1945, wearing overalls and carrying a pitchfork. They were called the Farmers of Watts. Girl, look, I
Wow.
gotta write the story. I gotta write the story. I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
Yes, but then this is a woman who made sure her kids respected the community, respected the environment, respected their elders, treated people with respect and fairness and compassion,
Yeah.
right? But had this whole gangster
Yeah.
side, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's how I've been able to make it through. I've worked for the state of California for 30 years, and I've always had that kind of street mentality
Yes.
and that street. So whenever things would like budget or money, listen, I would thrive in the worst conditions. And they would go, how are you doing it? This is what I do. I transcend limitations.
That's
You
right.
can't stop me. You
That's
see,
right.
I
That's
did
right.
30 years that way. And I can look back and go, oh, that's how I did it because I brought my street sense
Yes.
into the environment.
Yes.
So,
I think, just as a side note, I think that there is a truly divine power in bridging the concept of like what makes things official or formal or professional or whatever in the systems, right?
yeah,
Versus bringing and connecting the authentic, they call them hood politics or, like you said, street sense or whatever, which is really just life experience.
life 101. That's it.
And so when you get to a place where you can marry those two, that's where, like, your mom as a white passing woman, the authenticity of her coming through and saying, yes, you may be perceived, I may be being perceived in a certain way, but my actions, my behaviors, my beliefs, my family, my, how what I bring to the community, how I participate in this experience together, there's no division there. And that is like,
It was oneness. There was
oof,
no separation. we grew up with everyone. So I had this Irish grandmother, then I had this mixed grandfather, right? Then I have this, talk about a mixed family, right?
Yeah.
We had everyone in our family, Asians, Latinos, everybody was there.
Right.
We had a part of our family speak Spanish. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't know about separation. The world told us about
Yes.
separation and
Yes.
that you need, my spouse is from Alabama. And so I never knew segregation because I grew up in Los Angeles, right?
Right.
Always
Right.
integrated. And when I went to Alabama, I saw segregation firsthand. And
Right.
I saw what it means to live on your side of the track and don't come over here. I
Right.
saw the disparities on this side of the track and all of the abilities and the access on this side,
Resources. Yeah.
and it's just, so you just begin to see the world as it is, but you don't have to become the world,
Right.
so.
Oh my goodness. So I think you've touched on this a little bit, but can you maybe we can combine these last two together, the idea of being a compassion ambassador, what that really means to you, and then how you might invite others to become a compassion ambassador in their own communities and like wear that title. What does that mean to you?
Okay. Well, I think first of all, compassion ambassador, I want people to know, because when people hear about this, I guess they think it's really on the local level. I want people to know this is an international, national, state, city, local, neighborhood movement.
Yeah.
I want people to know this is global. This is not just in our neighborhood. And as a compassionate ambassador, I believe that I hold the heart of the community in my hands. I hold the heart in watching local officials develop policies that impact my community. That if they're developing something that I would like to, give feedback, if there's going to be impact with the community. Um, an ambassador means that I help fill some of the gaps in the community, not meaning that I physically fill them, but through connections and linkages, relationships, and networks. That's the
Yes.
way I see it. I did a big fundraiser at the farm, and it really validated my role was not to do the work, but to connect all the pieces, to connect the community-based organizations, to connect the local officials, to connect the community members, connect the spiritual communities, and by doing that, the work got done. It got
Yeah.
done. And so being at the table is an important part of being a compassionate ambassador. And for those who are on the fence or not sure if this is something that they want to do, I want them to know the reward of giving back to your community is 1,000-fold,
Mm.
1,000-fold. Um, if we want to see change, we got to be the change, right? If you want to make a difference in your community, you got to get involved.
Yeah.
Now, I'm first one to say this is not an easy job. It's a challenging job because you're dealing with people and you're dealing with people's stuff and you're dealing with agendas and it gets very political. But if you could hold on to a vision, collective vision of compassion being woven through all of our interactions and all of our relationships and everything that we do, that's going to pull you through these interactions that appear to be limiting, where people have their own agendas or they don't want to participate. Because I have found as I plant a seed, and when there's pushback, I move away. And guess what? That seed is still growing. People are calling me from seeds that I planted 3 years ago.
Mm.
So it's not about your timing, it's about having that vision, holding that vision for the community, and finding a way that how we can work together and prioritize our needs, as well as distribute the work and get it done. There's so much to get done. And I'm finding with community-based organizations, they don't have the resources. But if I can connect you with another group that has the resources and doesn't have the know-how and you have the know-how, wow, how powerful is that? And these relationships are sustainable.
Yeah.
So we need everybody to make this work. We need our seniors to share their wisdom. We need our youth to share their vision for tomorrow. And we need those local authorities to work out those systemic challenges that we have. And so being a compassion ambassador is one of the most rewarding experiences in my life. I am just joy filled to be able to do this and give back to my community. But what I find is the community gives back to me.
Oh,